Whether you've been playing the saxophone for 1 month or 100 years, you know that the mouthpiece is an incredibly important part of your overall setup. However, it's also this dark, mystical, and kind of scary thing, full of weird words and strange jargon. What is a baffle? How big is a tip opening? What do you do with a chamber? These are all very legitimate questions that we get asked a lot here at sax.co.uk. So, we thought it was best to give you a little rundown on the mouthpiece and what these things do and how they can make a difference. So, this is the Mouthpiece Explained. The first thing you're going to want to consider is the tip opening. The tip opening, put plainly, is the distance between the tip of the mouthpiece and the tip of the reed. So when you read it on the mouthpiece, it's the gap between those two parts. The bigger the number on your mouthpiece, the bigger the gap becomes. When you open your tip opening, what's going to happen is it's going to allow you to put more air through the horn. It's going to allow you to have a broader overall tone. So if you go for a narrow tip opening, it can be a bit more focused, a bit more direct. If you broaden that tip opening, you broaden your tone. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you have to broaden your tip opening. It's not a hard and fast rule. You do not have to have the biggest opening you could possibly play. When you start the saxophone, most players play on a very narrow tip opening. Classical players play on very narrow tip openings because what that allows you is more focus and a lot more articulation, and definitely more accurate articulation. If you are deciding to open your tip opening, what you might notice is that the bottom notes in particular will feel a little harder. You're getting more air through the horn, you're allowing your reed to vibrate a little bit more because there's more space. And it can make those bottom notes feel quite difficult and breathy. It might feel like the air is falling out from you. That's okay. It entirely depends on you if you want to persevere with that and get a bit stronger and get that broader sound, or if you prefer something narrower. Tip opening can be quite a difficult thing to demonstrate on camera, but the best thing to do is grab a couple of mouthpieces and grab a saxophone and really just sort of play some different tunes. Ah! After the tip opening, you get to the baffle. The baffle has the most effect on the overall airflow of a mouthpiece and can drastically affect your tone on the saxophone. So, the more built up the space within the baffle, so the bigger the step inside the baffle, the quicker the air has to travel through the mouthpiece and the quicker the air gets through the horn itself. So think of it in comparison to a hose pipe. So when you let water go through a hose pipe naturally, the water is nice and thick but doesn't get very far. If you cover the edge of a hose pipe with your thumb, the water has to travel through faster, it goes further, but it's a lot thinner. It's the same idea with the baffle itself. So the more built up the baffle, the quicker the air has to go and the more projection you get, but it's a slightly thinner tone. The less baffle you have, the slower the air travels, the thicker the tone, but the less projection you have. After the baffle, you get to the chamber, which is inside the mouthpiece itself. The chamber affects the airflow coming from the mouthpiece into the saxophone, and there are different types of chamber available. The most common is a medium chamber. That means that that internal part of the mouthpiece is exactly the same size as the bore. The bore is the bit that goes onto the saxophone. When they're the same size, it gives you a nice consistent airflow and it gives you a nice consistent tone and a lovely core to your overall sound. When you go for a large chamber, you're taking the internal part of the mouthpiece and making it bigger than the bore, which means the air has more space to work around before going into that smaller space. So it's going to give you a fuller sound overall. Finally, you got a small chamber, which is the exact opposite of a large chamber. So the chamber then is smaller than the bore, which means the air has to go through faster into a smaller space. What it gives you is a more pokey sound. It gives you a more direction to your tone. So that is the Mouthpiece explained. Of course, you can get really lost in the weeds if you want to, with all the minutiae of different details that a mouthpiece entails. But you do not have to worry too much about that, because those three essential things, the tip opening, the baffle, and the chamber, will really help you understand what sort of tone you might be looking for overall. If you do have any questions, please just get in contact with the store themselves, and we are here to help you. My question to you, the fine viewers, is what sort of mouthpiece are you looking for? What's your favourite type of baffle? What sort of sound do you look for in a mouthpiece? Pop a comment under this video below. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, share and subscribe. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.